recently the courts issued a ruling that basically you could use overturned or paused the federal government's approval of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which would have brought Alberta energy to the BC coast. So basically the courts were very specific and said that First Nations communities were not consulted, and they went into different ways that consultations have to happen. Through that process, the court said just basically talking to them and taking notes and not engaging wasn't enough. So apparently the company has to go back and have a conversation rather than taking their concerns and moving forward. This despite the many agreements that were signed with First Nations communities along the pipeline route and within a 10-kilometer buffer zone. So this also is a complete failure of the Prime Minister, because he's the one who changed the process and told Canadians this new consultation program was going to fix that problem. So they delayed the Trans Mountain Pipeline for 6 months of additional consultations with First Nations community, which the courts then just recently struck down and said that was not good enough. And so that's
was there a new time? Is there a new timeline?
Well, yes, the courts say the government has to go back and do that again.
Okay.
Now that was 6 months of consultations upon pretty much another 6 months as the government fiddling around after that, and construction still hasn't started despite approval after approval. The other part was the carbon tax. This was supposed to be a trade-off, right? We, as consumers, pay more for the price of fuel, home heating, oil, you name it. In exchange, you get a pipeline built. So that part failed as well. And now you have premiers in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick is wavering. Now we're hearing Alberta is pulling out, which was the NDP premier, who was told all along, have the carbon tax, get the pipeline. And that is not happening. So they're out. And this is a severe problem for the Prime Minister, because he has failed on every single file. And Northern Gateway, program was canceled. That would have brought liquefied natural gas to the northern coast of British Columbia, Petronas. They had that program canceled. Energy East, which would have brought Alberta energy to New Brunswick. And basically that pipeline through TransCanada, that pipeline is already there. It was just an extension on either end. It was very small. And now we in Canada are having a spat with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the #1 importer that we have of oil coming into Canada. So think of the better position we would have been if we were using Canadian jobs to get energy to New Brunswick, to the Atlantic, using Canadian workers, Canadian refineries, and then accessing the European market had that happen.